4th Black-Jewish Freedom Seder. It's my 47th Seder. But the first class I took in Northwestern was my freshman seminar called Passing the Performance of Identity.
I remember that.
Yeah. So that sort of piqued my interest in the whole, what was going on in our campus, sort of globally, but also then what's on our campus. I realized a lot of self-segregation as soon as I got here, which was something. I grew up mostly knowing white Jewish people. I went to private school my whole life, so I wasn't really familiar with self-segregation, just segregation, generally, historically. And this event is just a nice way for me to sort of my faith and something that's very important to me coalesce with also something that I became interested in very early on in college, and hopefully I'll continue with afterwards.
From the same Hebrew word as Haggadah, to tell section is at the heart of the Seder, both in timing and in purpose. Magid is when Jews tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt, the process of moving from slavery to freedom. Tonight, we look back on our personal and communal histories, our histories of oppression and redemption, as inspiration for the future. The story of the Exodus, the Magid, is not told linearly with a beginning, middle, and end, but rather through a compilation of questions, rituals, and biblical passages. A number of different starting points are used in recognition that each of our stories of slavery and freedom begin and end in a different way. It also invites us to use our own creativity in retelling and relearning the story year after year, gleaning different lessons each time.
What's happening here, people?
Okay, my name's Kristen, and I'm a sophomore at Weinberg, French International Studies. And I guess the biggest reason why I'm here today is because I'm part of FMO for Members Only, the Black Student Alliance of Northwestern. And I think the biggest thing that FMO has to do with this is that, Black people originally started out kind of oppressed on this campus, they didn't really have a voice or a place. So FMO started to kind of create that place where its members, and the tradition still carries on today, even though obviously we're a much more inclusive Northwestern community, though there's still a lot of work to be done. And I just feel like events like this just really help that to happen.
Thank you.
Which is horseradish. In Hebrew that's called maror, which comes from the same root as the word bitter, for obvious reasons. And maror we eat also to symbolize the bitterness of the slavery that Jews experienced in Egypt. So feel free to pass that around and to start to eat that.
We gather tonight to tell the story. If the Seder succeeds, it will get us to tell our own stories and reflect on their meaning. T.S. Eliot said that we have the experience, but we missed the meaning. We gather tonight so that we won't miss the meaning. If you want to follow the commandment to have a Seder, you must tell the story and get the meaning. The same is true for organizing for social change. I am frequently asked, what was the impact of being a community organizer on Barack Obama? The most important thing that Barack learned in his time organizing in Chicago was not to let others define him, but to define himself. That may be the most important lesson that any of us ever learn. It is the lesson which enabled him to be elected president. The first thing a new organizer is assigned to do is to listen to people's stories. The basis of organization is relationships. Relationships are built at the deepest level around personal stories and narrative. Like any organizer, Barack Obama spent hour after hour in one-on-one interviews and small group discussions, listening to people tell their stories. It was in learning to tell his own story that Barack was able to define himself. It was in teaching others to tell their stories that Barack learned to be an organizer and later a leader. Are we going to define ourselves or let others define us? Jews and African Americans define themselves by telling our stories of freedom.
My grandfather would eat dozens at a time out of jars like cookies. Gelatinous bone jelly dripping from his fingers like honey. Around Pesach, I look forward to the story of our people devising liberation strategies, and this loaf of fish on a glass plate, a sliced boiled carrot on top, perhaps, a mound of horseradish, the mush of hot mess sliding down my throat like mucus. Gefilte fish is the perfect food for a wandering people, weaving around Europe with sacks, scrounging scraps, seaside, a boatload of cuttings, unwanted bones and guts, a mishmash of whitefish, carp, pike, anything with protein that's kosher, patty caked with matzah crumbs, discarded bits the baker would throw away, we put to use. An environmentally forward Ashkenazic hamburger of sorts. A culinary amalgamation, Yiddish for the palate, chitlins for the shtetl. Gefilte means stuffed. I eat them like donut holes until I live up to the name. But they are not sweet. They smell like sweaty asses at the Schwitz. But in one brown nugget, a day's nutrients, a touchstone in diaspora, a testament to perseverance and the ingenuity to live with stank breath. My bubby in the backyard wears a gas mask grinding horseradish from scratch to lather your beige balls. Your salty, bland doorstop of a main dish, the Messiah will come before you are reinvented on celebrity cookie shows. And I hate to say this, but it is the golem in the room, and my nose is already too big. I can't afford to tell a lie. Gefilte fish, you look like balsa wood. Took a shit. But you taste like history. My grandfather is dead. I eat to honor the stories he never told me. You are a flawed, lovely creation. You taste so much like home. Bitter, sweet.
But before we reach the majestic shores of the promised land, there will still be gigantic mountains of opposition ahead and prodigious hilltops of injustice. Let us be dissatisfied until the tragic walls that separate the outer city of wealth and comfort and the inner city of poverty and despair shall be crushed by the battering rams of the forces of justice. Let us be dissatisfied until those that live on the outskirts of hope are brought into the metropolis of daily security. Let us be dissatisfied until slums are cast into the junk heaps of history and every family is living in a decent, sanitary home. Let us be dissatisfied until the dark yesterdays of segregated schools will be transformed into a bright tomorrow of equality and integrated education. Let us be dissatisfied until integration is not seen as a problem, but as an opportunity to participate in the beauty of diversity. Let us be dissatisfied until men and women, however black they may be, will be judged on the basis of the content of their character and not on the basis of the color of their skin. Let us be dissatisfied until from every city hall, justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like the mighty stream. Let us be dissatisfied until that day when nobody will shy